Hi, Tracy. I see we've got you now.
Sorry about that.
No worries at all. It's always incredible to me, even after all of us working online for a couple of years at this point, there's still always something that comes up every time we try to arrange a large online event. Thank you for persisting and for joining us. So I'll take this opportunity to welcome everybody back from lunch. If you've been off or up or getting water, feel free to settle in. We have a really great afternoon of programming for you guys. Um, Building on our conversation this morning, in which we heard a little bit about people trying to address both interpersonal racism and structural discrimination in their workplaces, and also learning a little bit more specifically about the temporary foreign worker program as well. Our first session this afternoon is going to address migrant workers challenging workplace discrimination and abuse in New Brunswick with our very welcome guest, Tracy Glynn. Tracy is an activist scholar based in Fredericton on unceded Wolastoqiyik territory. Her activism and scholarship is focused on supporting communities affected by resource extraction, migration and border policies, and inadequate healthcare services. Tracy is the National Director of Operations and Projects for the Canadian Health Coalition, a founding board member of the Madhu Verma Migrant Justice Centre, and holds a regular teaching appointment in the Environment and Society program and School of Social Work at St. Thomas University. She teaches sociology courses at St. Thomas and at the University of New Brunswick. Tracy, thank you so much for being here. The stage is yours. I'll continue to monitor chat and keep an eye on any questions coming in through the Q&A function. You can take it away.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to share my screen. I just have these slides that I hope will work. Um, yeah, sorry for being a couple minutes late too. Thank you for the introduction, Michelle. So I am with the Madhu Verma Migrant Justice Center, and I'm also an author of this report here on free labor, COVID-19 migrant workers in the seafood industry in New Brunswick, and one of the co-authors, and I'll be talking a little bit about that study. But I wanted today to talk about the work that the Madhu Verma Migrant Justice Center, Madhu Center for short, is doing. We were founded just a year ago, and we work with migrant workers in this province. Just gonna see. Yep. Our center is named after Madhu Verma, who probably doesn't need an introduction. Many of you probably know who Madhu Verma is. We decided to name the center after her, given her extensive activism, her life work supporting newcomers in this province. So, if you don't know who she is, Madhu was a child refugee who moved to New Brunswick in the 1960s and experienced discrimination, including not being able to buy a home in Fredericton because of discrimination. We are inspired by her work and lifelong commitment to build a more welcoming and just province. She's a founder of the Multicultural Association of Fredericton, the New Brunswick Multicultural Council, and she currently chairs the Asian Heritage Society of New Brunswick, and she's also the honorary chair of the Madhu Center, and a very active board member too. Like I said, we formed a year ago in May 2022 to support migrant workers and others in the province with precarious immigration status in New Brunswick. Two things really happened to propel our organization, or those of us who have been engaged in migrant justice work for a long time, to finally form an organization that was dedicated to supporting migrant workers in our province. So one of those things was there was a case of a dozen trafficked migrant workers in Fredericton who needed support. And so trafficking of migrant workers in Canada is on the rise, according to this recent report by the Canadian Centre to End Human Trafficking. So these workers, FCJ Refugee Center based in Toronto, contacted a group of us that are known to do migrant justice work. And so that was one of the developments that led us to finally creating an organization. The second development was that we had these funds that were available for community-based migrant services from Employment and Social Development Canada, ESDC. So we were able to access those funds in order to provide some of the emergency support that the migrant workers needed, whether that was housing or food support, as well as guidance around filing for open work permits for vulnerable workers. But like I said, before our founding, there has been people have been engaged in supporting temporary foreign workers, people in our province with precarious immigration status. So for example, in 2017, known as Illegal Fredericton focused on making Fredericton a sanctuary city in response to Trump's anti-immigration policies, as well as Canada's failure to abandon policies that make life more dangerous for immigrants and asylum seekers. So a sanctuary city briefly is a safe zone for undocumented people or people with uncertain immigration status, where they can access, for example, city services without fear of being reported by service providers or to the police, to Canada Border Services Agency, which then can result in them being detained or deported. So a few city councillors and more than 40 organizations backed the initiative, including New Brunswick's largest public sector union, CUPE New Brunswick, the faculty unions at St. Thomas University and the University of New Brunswick, faith-based groups, the New Brunswick Refugee Clinic, service providers like Clinic 554 and Grace House. But despite this widespread support, Fredericton did not become a sanctuary city, which means that today the Madhu Center is left scrambling to find healthcare for the pregnant asylum seeker who was until recently seeking shelter at the local mosque. So that's just one of many examples of people who rely on the support of the community when they experience workplace abuse, or when they need shelter or food or transportation, healthcare, legal guidance, friendship as they navigate turmoil. So, and we do know that many times migrants never find such supports, that it's only really by luck and privilege in some cases that they do. So one example, of how the system completely failed migrant workers. Sorry, my slides are out of order here. Just going back. One example of how the system has failed migrant workers is this is a story from last year, but it is happening again this year with some of the seafood processing plants temporarily shutting down when they're for a variety of reasons, when their market slowdowns and such. The plants shut down, and workers who come here on these short-term contracts, they have been promised a certain period of work, but then when the plants do shut down, they are left without employment and wages. Many times they don't work enough hours to access EI, and so they have been forced to turn to the local food banks to eat. So last summer, this was the first time that we had heard of this, when a lobster processing plant temporarily shut down and laid off 80 migrant workers. They were forced to turn to the Rishabukto food bank. The food bank coordinator there told us that was the first time she ever saw a migrant worker access the food bank. Our partner, Migrant Workers Alliance for Change, that has staff in the Miramichi region now. So we work closely with them. They took political action for the migrant workers. They're an organization of migrant workers. So they did force the employer to live up to its contractual obligations and pay the workers. And this summer, we continue to support migrant workers. You may have seen a recent story. I'll loop back to that near the end of my talk, but of migrant workers fighting back, not wanting to be sent home early, wanting to also make the case for open work permits, and not these employer-specific permits that temporary foreign workers currently come here and puts them in these situations of vulnerability and abuse. They can't freely move employers, or in this case, when the plants shut down, they can't go to another employer and seek work there. One of the things that the Madhu Center, while we're also, we provide these services to migrant workers. We're also a political organization, and we do make demands on the government. We point out that there are numerous policies that need to change to protect the rights and lives of temporary foreign workers. We do know that recently I can share that the former public safety minister, recently told me that that in response to my questioning him about some of these policies that result in situations where migrant workers can't access healthcare or such. He told me that I wouldn't find a more compassionate government, but we are in a situation, where migrant workers are having to crowdfund to pay for healthcare, like the case of Carrie Burnett, a seasonal worker who came to Nova Scotia to work on a strawberry farm and was fired when she was diagnosed with cancer. And it took a long time, probably too long, to finally get her access to the interim federal health program. But these are problems that that would be resolved if we had, for example, healthcare on arrival for temporary foreign workers. So while temporary foreign workers have benefited from federal government funds for community-based migrant services, like what the Madhu Center, as a distributor of those funds to workers, we also recognize that the services provided by this funding arrangement is no replacement for the state adequately providing social services directly to migrant workers, as well as making some of the reforms that are needed. Our community groups operate in environments that have been devastated by decades of government underspending of social services, so we are, while we accept these funds, we're also constantly reminding, for example, the minister responsible for ESDC that these funds for these services in many ways would have to exist if we did make a number of reforms, like open work permits, for example. So I did want to talk about maybe I'll go now to the case for the open work permit. So recently the Madhu Center and the Cooper Institute, our sister organization in PEI that has supported migrant workers in PEI. We recently testified before the Senate Committee on Social Affairs, Science, and Technology. And we also supported a worker, Adriana Vega Guion, to testify there as well. And the Senate Committee is coming to New Brunswick. They're going to be in Moncton on Sunday, and we've organized a number of workers to attend this meeting with the Senate Committee, and in partnership with the organizations that I think you're hearing from today, like the Roland Moreno, the organization, the Filipino Community Organization of Brunswick, and the Migrant Workers Alliance for Change organizations, and OLA MB. So at the Senate Committee has been hearing from us. One of the things that we've been pushing for is making the case for open work permits. And Adriana, the worker who testified before this committee, and you can watch her testimony at that link there. In her case, she was being bullied by her coworkers, and this is something that we're hearing. Unfortunately, it is a situation that's happening across the province. Workers are being bullied by their coworkers, experiencing racism, and that's in different sectors. Seafood processing, we're hearing it in the care sector, and so in Adriana's case, when she complained to her employer about the bullying and the harassment, which actually led to she had a workplace injury, she was told that by the employer that that's just the way the Jamaican workers are. So we see these racist tropes that are stereotypes and just racism that's also being perpetuated by the employers, and instead of dealing with workplace safety and abuse, employers are not seriously addressing the workers' situations, and in some cases they've decided just to fly the workers back home, which the employers are obligated to do if something doesn't work out. But workers are not asking to be back home. They're asking their employers to live up to the terms of their contracts, to deal with any abuse that's happening in the workplace, to be properly trained. So this is why, in Adriana's case, she applied for an open work permit for vulnerable workers. We're often told by government that this is the solution to if a worker is experiencing abuse in the workplace. But when Adriana first applied, she wasn't aware of what kinds of evidence she needed to submit. The process is quite complicated, and so she failed the first time she applied. But then when the Madhu Center was able to support her in her next application, and she was successful, so now she's working at another location, and is continuing to participate in these forums, it's becoming a strong voice for migrant workers in this province. I had mentioned earlier that one of our campaigns is around getting access to public health care, Medicare on arrival for temporary foreign workers. Right now, employers are obligated to provide private health insurance for the period of time that they're not covered by Medicare. But we are seeing a number of cases where workers are being denied access to their health insurance numbers, cards. So they've had to ask for our support to ask their employers to provide this information. Of course, that causes situations too, that puts the workers in further jeopardy too. They're, workers don't want to be seen as being troublemakers because they know that so much is at stake there, that it's not just about addressing the current situation, but they have to think about whether they'll be invited back next season, and such. So and there have been cases where workers have also said that when they're laid off, their healthcare coverage has also been put on pause. Workers who have been who need dental care. Dental care is important. Sometimes we think that that it's that's the lesser of the but dental care, that when it's dental healthcare problems are not addressed right away, can lead to more serious situations, and in some cases it has led to death in the case of infections. So workers here have to struggle with finding healthcare providers too, like all the problems that we all have to deal with, and with the healthcare system. But so we've been currently meeting with government, different folks in the health department, the Medicare branch, political parties, to support our calls for Medicare on arrival for temporary foreign workers, as well as more healthcare that's more responsive to the needs of migrant workers. So more accessible information in languages of migrant workers. We have many migrant workers that we support only speak Spanish. So those are some of our demands around that. We're also part of campaigns calling for the regularization of status. More direct pathways to permanent residency for migrant workers. The federal government last year, the Trudeau government did direct the then migrant immigration minister to implement a regularization plan, and we've been calling for temporary foreign workers to be part of that. We do know that when yeah, the worker's temporary status is very much part of the denial of their rights and putting them in situations of severe precarity and vulnerability, so we are part of those campaigns, and we do know that employers also support. We heard it actually at the Senate committee hearing that I just talked about. One of the industry representatives for seafood processing in Newfoundland talked about how he would how industry supports that, because it means that that workers can stay and build a life here. I already talked about the campaign for open work permits a little bit. You might have seen this recent news story. So this migrant worker, Francisco, has bravely has gone to the media to represent also the other workers too at this fishery plant up north, and in this situation where they were all laid off, and a number of them have been sent back home, but a number of them want to stay, so they're fighting that, and they are demanding that the closed work permit system be abolished, and that we move towards an open work permit system. I have also seen this news was just reported yesterday. The UN Special Rapporteur on contemporary forms of slavery has been in Canada. He was in Moncton 2 Sundays ago, where a number of us met with him, and also organized a group of migrant workers to meet with him, and it was very clear that he was the same situations of abuse and exploitation were happening not just in New Brunswick but across Canada, and he made it clear to us that he was going to in his report that's due out next year, that he was going to include open work permits, permanent residency for all for temporary foreign workers as part of his recommendations. And I think you can watch, if you go to his Twitter, I think you can watch the media conference that he did in Ottawa yesterday. So I like to hear from all of you, but just to quickly say, those of you who are here who want to join us in our campaign, you're more than welcome to. We are a new organization, so we are growing right now. I'm happy to report that the New Brunswick Law Foundation is going to be funding a migrant worker legal clinic pilot project. So we found that out. Just to say that we are growing, and we have 3 staff and that are doing casework and building our digital resource hub to provide more accessible information to workers. There's 2 events coming up, so I wanted to invite you all to a Status for All barbecue on Saturday, September 16th at Consumer House downtown here in Edmonton, and we're also doing our first annual gala fundraiser at the Beaverbrook Art Gallery on November 30th. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen. Okay. But thank you all for listening.
Thank you, Tracy. That was really, really interesting. So if anyone has questions or comments for Tracy, you're welcome to stick them in chat. You're welcome to use the Q&A function. We had one comment submitted in French, which I'm going to very roughly paraphrase, to say that there are people in all workplaces and structures that have complex immigration status, and they don't always say so immediately or openly. and that should be part of how we understand the world that we live in. There's also been a comment expressing interest in getting involved with the movement, so thank you again for sharing your the contact information at the end of that slide. If anyone missed that, you're welcome to reach out to any of the conference organizers or to Tracy or the Madhu Verma Center directly to be able to get involved. Congratulations on the legal clinic funding. That's really exciting. It's very, very obvious that there's a need for more legal supports in this area. One of the things that I was thinking about as you went through that maybe is a good transition from that is, can you tell us a little bit about to what extent migrant workers currently have access to some of the legal protections around things like harassment and workplace health and safety and all of that um, Canadian-born New Brunswickers tend to enjoy? Maybe you could say something about to what extent those tools are or would be effective for helping to protect people in these precarious circumstances.
I think, well, there's definitely, we've been over the past year, we've been, meeting with different organizations to get a sense of what organizations are open to providing services to migrant workers. So I know I see Amber's here, and Amber was one of the folks we met with police to find out, and we were happy to know that the work around like experiencing sexual harassment in the workplace, that those services are available, or we're able to talk to Amber and please, and this is also, we also rely on like there are like Clinic 554, for example, or and there are doctors and nurses and other pro bono, but people doing pro bono work, and so we're building up that as well, like that we have a database where in a situation where like a migrant worker. We also support some refugees too. We work closely with the refugee clinic as well. Uh, like just building up that database of folks who are willing to provide services to fill in the gaps, but there's so much work to be done to make sure that these gaps and services don't exist. We need to stop treating temporary foreign workers like they have like fewer keys, I guess, to the nation. Like there are certain groups of people in our country that that don't have access to whether it's healthcare or and such. But and then we also are working closely with like groups like the Common Front for Social Justice, the New Brunswick Coalition for Pay Equity. I meant to talk to this is a talk about for a respectful work week, but I didn't mean to talk to about our demands around strengthening the Employment Standards Act. So we are working closely with the Common Front for Social Justice too on increasing the minimum wage. One of the things that the UN Special Rapporteur noted, or that we noted to him, was that, like, he asked if temporary foreign workers get paid the minimum wage, and they do, but the minimum wage, as we know, is not enough. It's not a living wage. So we were able to tell him what the St. John Human Development Council reports as the minimum wage in these areas of the province, and so he did note that. And so I think there are, we need to strengthen the Employment Standards Act, whether like around specifically the section on temporary foreign workers. Like some provinces have special legislation just for temporary foreign workers, but we can keep it under the Employment Standards Act. We haven't said that it shouldn't be under that, but that section needs to be like strengthened, like around to like inspections, like whether it's workplace housing inspections, or it might not be under the Employment Standards Act for the housing inspections, but there's a lot of reforms that need to be done to ensure that the workplace as well as the living arrangements are safe and adequate.
Yeah, that makes very good sense. Um, what are some of the opportunities for people who are interested in supporting this work to get involved? You had the contact information up. What kind of organizing work are you guys up to right now? I mean, you've talked about the the campaign around some law reform stuff and supporting individual test client or sort of clients through addressing their own situations. What kind of role can people have in supporting the movement?
Yeah, thank you. There's a great need. We are currently identifying sort of the different ways that people can get involved, and we do have a large group of folks who are, it's not just our board members, but we have, people that, volunteer, like translation, and we do need, one of the things we do need is social media help. A lot of the times, we're so focused on putting out fires and dealing with people's emergency situations that we haven't been so focused on some of the. It's also important, to be communicating what's happening with the situation of migrant workers, and we are there's opportunities too, I think, for training. Like we work with FCJ Refugee Center that is currently doing a number of trainings, like for people who might want to help out with, help open work permit applications or such. So there's some professional development opportunities too, I guess, that and but I'm sure I'm forgetting a number of things that we need help with, but I encourage folks that we're at info@madhucenter.ca. If you
Okay.
email that address, we can talk to you about those opportunities. And we some of us are based in Fredericton, but we do have people across the province working with us, and and right now the workers that we are supporting are more so like they're mostly in the seafood processing sector, but we have been also supporting workers in the care sector. I think it's important, like folks who do work like in these sectors too, to like we've been talking to the unions too that represent these workers. They're interested in doing this work too, because they're witnessing the racism in the workplace and unsafe conditions. And they want to figure out how to make our workplaces and communities a better place. So
Well, good. That's great. There you go. Especially if there's anyone out there with social media experience, this is a great time to send an email. We're going to drop the email address that Tracy just mentioned, and also a link to FCJ Refugee Center in case anyone's interested in any of that training or anything into the chat in a second. But I have a question here from someone in our audience. They've asked, does anyone hold responsible the respective countries' liaison offices to advocate and protect their temporary foreign workers? This picks up on a little bit of a conversation that we had with Roland this morning in the caregiver context. So what are your thoughts on this?
yeah, we've talked to mostly the Mexican consular office. So they've been interested in the situation of Mexican workers. That there's been well, we've noticed like an increase in Mexican workers coming to the province too, and they're experiencing challenges around like language, and the number of the workers that we do support who are in abusive situations. We've um uh we've reached out. We're keeping that office informed. There has been they have told us like they don't have the resources, I guess, or to deal with or some of the situations that are coming up, but it's definitely I think we definitely need to be in touch with them. There's like there are bilateral agreements with some of the countries that send the temporary foreign workers. So in those cases, um, workers' rights can be more protected if you know if those agreements are enforced, and if what's found in those agreements are are being enforced and such. But yeah, no, that's a good question. Like they've been in touch with us too, like when which I also find interesting, like when if a worker reaches out to them and a worker needs housing in Moncton, like their office has reached out to us in the past to that. But it's definitely, yeah, it's important to in the past, like there has been some scholarship on this where that's sort of where countries were not necessarily being critical of the situation, because they wanted to it was competitive, so they wanted to bring workers. Like the Caribbean was competing with Mexico, and so they didn't want to so there was a lot of criticisms by migrant justice groups like on these consulates to do more to protect their citizens. And so but I think I've noticed that there has been, I think, improvements, but it's definitely like I think, yeah, we need to be holding these different bodies to account. For sure.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, well, if there are no further questions from the audience, I'm happy to give you the last word if there's anything that you'd like to close on or re-emphasize. Yeah.
um uh No, I think I covered it, like
Okay.
what I said, but yeah, I'm hoping, yeah, I think that there are, like I've noticed in the last year or two that there's been much more, like public discussion, like with the Senate committee coming here and the UN Special Rapporteur. Like there's international attention on how we treat migrant workers in New Brunswick. In Canada, but these bodies are choosing to come to New Brunswick, and we do have a record-breaking number of temporary foreign workers that have been coming here the last few years. And so like at the same time, like there's a number of policies that we need to catch up on, like healthcare, housing, employment standards, are just three of the areas that like this report that you can read on the tfwmaritimes.ca. Like we make a number of recommendations in this report. I covered some of them, but not all of them. But especially like around, like, for example, housing, we're finding that's a huge issue now, where employers are also landlords in some
Right.
cases. So and it's not clear, what like for migrant workers, what their rights are. And we're finding in situations where they have made complaints that the that inspection process is not done in a way that protects the workers, that would actually uncover the problems that exist, especially around overcrowding. That's been one issue where we've been disappointed by some responses from the fire marshal offices. So a lot of work still needs to be done. And I'm confident that I think we can make changes. And actually New Brunswick, in some cases, like whether it's, like healthcare, like we can actually lead. Like we often get asked, by folks, like, well, what is it like in other provinces? And it's really like these problems exist across the country. And we shouldn't have to wait to say another province does it better. Like we can step up and be the first province to grant Medicare on arrival for temporary foreign workers, for example.
Right. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that, for taking questions from the audience. I've dropped Again, the email address for the Madhu Center, links to the Madhu Center, FCJ Refugee Center, and tfwmaritimes.ca all in chat. So everyone, please take a look at those. Take a look at the report. It's extremely interesting, very bracing, and definitely worth your attention. Reach out and get involved. This is something you're interested in. Tracy, thank you so much for being with us. We really, really appreciate it. This was a great addition to the day.
No, well, thank you, Michelle, and thank you, everyone.